everyone. Welcome to another episode of the High Five Preschool and Kids Weekly Training Podcast. My name is Crystal. I'm here with my good friends, Kayla and Isaac. And we cannot wait to continue our conversation right now about how we are all made for community. And community makes us think of friends. And so, Isaac, Kayla, I would like to ask you, what's something fun you like to do with your friends?
There are a lot of things that I like to do with my friends. I think I actually have a few different groups of friends that like to do a bunch of different things. So I have one group of friends that love like throwing murder mystery parties or like Survivor themed parties where we'll go play Survivor for an entire day and they set up the game. But that's also like my board game group of friends where on just like a Friday or Saturday night, we'll go and play a board game. Or sometimes they just like open up. We've got some friends who own a coffee shop, so we'll just go to a coffee shop after they close and we'll play there, and it is tons of fun. If you've heard, Crystal, come be a part of our friends. Let's go. Let's go. If you've listened to the podcast a few times, you've probably heard I have a group of friends where we play disc golf, so I like to do that a few times a week. Also, some of you actually might be part of that group because some of the church ministers and like leaders who actually use hi-fi are some of my disc golf friends as well.
Oh, this just cracks me up because I feel like it just shows the differences in our personality. Kayla? Like Isaac says, like, tell me something you like to do with friends. And Isaac gives you like this whole world of like different things he loves to do with all his different friends because he has so much energy. And I'm over here thinking like, my love language is quality time. And I just want to spend quality time. And like my favorite things to do with my friends are like, going for like walks and going to a coffee shop to drink coffee and catch up on life because we have to schedule out like a month in advance when we can even see each other. And so, so for me, it's, I really love to do things with my friends that will just initiate quality time so I can have some of that one-on-one interaction without a lot of distractions from kids or spouses or whatever it is that is happening in our worlds at the moment.
Yeah. I just love spending any time with people however I can. But recently I did something really fun called Silent Book Club. I did it with my friend Kendra, who actually we've been in a book club together for like 15 years. But anyways, Silent Book Club is literally you go to a place and you show up, you've got your book or your Kindle. People kind of chit chat for about half an hour and then they're like, okay, we're going to start an hour of silent reading. Then everybody just stops talking and you sit there and read. It's amazing. And we were at a restaurant that we were sitting out on the patio and all the windows were down and you saw people walking by just giving us the strangest look like, why are there 50 people sitting on that patio just reading books silently? That's really cool. And so, I will say I posted pictures on social media and I had so many people be like, what is this? Where's one? And I just thought it was really funny that apparently the idea of going to a place and silently reading appeals to a lot of people. So yeah, it's good. So we actually asked this question to some of you who came and saw us over at the Hi-Fi booth when we were at the Edge conference. And so here's a couple of your answers.
My favorite thing to do with my friends in my community is probably just get together and fellowship. Just sit around a table, talk about the word, and just find different ways to glorify God through it.
Eat. Who doesn't love to eat together or coffee?
I think I would probably have to say I love any time that we can get together and just like cheer for the same thing, maybe like a sports game on TV or even like going to a stadium, something like that.
Well, that was really fun. And we just know that friends are such a blessing for the Lord. And it is our hope that the kids in our ministries this month, as we're talking about the truth of I am made for community, they will know that Jesus has called them and invites them to be his friend. And he also gives us the opportunity to really be in community and friends with one another. And so, as we're thinking about this, and this week we actually get to talk about the church and its amazing growth that we see in the first couple of chapters of Acts, and knowing that anyone can be God's friend. And so, what lessons do you think not just our kids, but even our volunteers and our families can take from that rapid growth of the early church? And how do you see it impacting their identities and relationships? The big question.
Let's start out with something small. My goodness, Crystal. Let's just jump right in there. Okay. Let's go. So I feel like with this Bible story about how anyone can be God's friend, it really highlights how the church grew so rapidly at the beginning, right? With Acts 1 and 2, and how the New Testament church, there were like thousands of people who were being saved. They were sharing and giving in community. They were just living life together and being very communal. And, when we think about our culture, we're very separated in a lot of our culture. And so I think that one of the answers maybe to this question could be that, one of the things that we can learn is just identifying where those areas are in our culture of separation and figuring out how we can break down some of those barriers to helping one another feel like we belong, right? So as we were talking about friends, I was just thinking about, what are the things that we look for when we look for who we want to be friends of ours? And how that's different than who Jesus looks for when he wants friends to be friends of Jesus, and that sometimes we're selective with, do they like this thing? Or are we alike in this area or this way? Or, for younger kids, it might be just like, what do we have in common? And I think whenever we look at Jesus and we look at the early church, we see that there are people from all walks of life that are invited to be God's friend. And so rather than looking at one another and seeing, okay, what are things I like about this person that I feel like they can be my friend? I think one of the things that we can learn as we talk about biblical community is how we grow in relationship with people who are different than us, who may think differently than us. But is that core thing that we believe to be true about who Jesus is that what matters most? And if that's what matters most, then we can celebrate and elevate other differences amongst ourselves while also choosing to live in community with one another.
Yeah, I love that. And it's funny because this idea of community is so popular right now. Like you see all of these statements and people talking about like finding your tribe and finding your people. And so, Isaac, would you speak a little bit into the difference between a Christ-centered community and really all the other communities that the culture would try and offer people, or even that sometimes we feel is in competition with the church?
For sure. And I think this leads into a little bit from what Kayla just said about how everyone is invited. Jesus is inviting everyone to be a part of this community. I mentioned earlier that I have a few different groups of friends and we like to do different things. I have my board game group of friends. I have my disc golf group of friends. But actually one thing that I've realized as I'm listening to this that we all have in common is I met I would say 95% of these people through my church community, through my community in my local church. And that is such an important part of when we are looking at biblical community, is that we all have different things in common. We have different things that we like, different things that we don't like. But the one thing that is keeping us centered is that relationship with God. And the great thing about having this community is that when I have questions, when I have things that I'm going through, when I have moments where I just say, hey, I need some prayer, I can look into my friend on hole 3 of the disc golf course. I can say, hey, this is what I'm going for. Can we pray about this? And you know what? It's been so cool to have friends like that can just pray with me, that can check in on me throughout the day of saying, hey, what is it that you need? What can I pray for you for? What is it that you're going through? And vice versa, I can do the same thing for them. And And I think one of the biggest differences between a community outside of Christ and a community inside of Christ is that we already all have something in common. We don't need to have, because I feel like a lot of communities outside of the church, outside of Christ, they have things that say, hey, you have to check off these boxes.
Right.
You have to be able to do this. You have to be able to like this. You have to say these words. You have to believe in this mantra. But instead, all we are saying is saying, hey, just you have to understand that you are broken and that you need Jesus. Mm-hmm. And that is what centers all of us as part of this biblical community.
Man, I love that so much. And the fact that we as the church, as followers of Jesus, can be in a different kind of community, I think it really helps us to also be able to look and see just some hindrances that kids today face when it comes to finding community and even being a part of community, or even what community means. Kids today are living in a culture that would tell them, like, yes, find your people, but they need to agree everything. Like, you need to be pretty much the same. And if they are not, you have every right to be separate. You have every right to criticize. Like, you should not even try to be together. Versus this amazing example we have of the early church where it's literally like, no, everyone is welcome. Please come and be a part of this. I'm going through the book of Romans right now with a friend, and one of the things that we've talked about is how there was so much division between Gentile Christians and Jewish Christians in the early church. And Paul is sitting there saying, guys, what we have in common is way bigger than anything that would ever divide us. And I think that we get to look at kids in our ministries today and we get to say the same thing. When you are part of God's family, when you are loving and following Jesus, that is all that you need in order to be in community with somebody. Yeah, you might disagree on some things. You might live a little bit different. Your churches might even be a little bit different. You know, like you might go to this church and I might go to this church, and you guys do these things this way and we do things that way. But you know what? We are all still part of this same community, and it's this community of Christ followers. And so we get to help kids see that when you love and follow Jesus, you are part of this community no matter what. Oh, but what about, nope, nope, nope. But they are, no. like it's okay to be different in our communities. It's okay as long as we all love and are following and pursuing Jesus together. And when we have that mentality, I think about how even as adults that can impact us. When we start to look around our neighborhoods and instead of saying, well, I don't know about this person and that person seems too far gone and all this. No. They all need to hear Jesus. And if they want to love and accept him and start being a part of my community, like that would be great. And so, man, everybody has the potential to be a part of this community because God made them and loves them and calls them. And how cool is that we get to tell kids this? Like, hey, your friends at school, they're invited to be a part of God's community. Your kid in your neighborhood who might pick their nose and eat their boogers, they're invited to be a part of God's community because he loves all of us and he wants all of us to be a part of this community.
Yeah, I'm really excited actually for the preschool Super Clue. It is an invitation. Mm-hmm. That invitation that we can hand out freely. It's not just for the people we want at our birthday party, but Jesus has invited all of us to be a part of this community. And I'm really excited to be able to show preschoolers at that young age that truth, but also to remind us that sometimes the kids in our group that maybe are a little bit rowdier, maybe that have a little bit more trouble sitting still, that aren't quite the ones that are paying attention, they are also invited into this community, and we get to share with them the good news of Jesus.
You know, Kayla, recently you kind of started doing some new community things. Do you want to share a little bit about even your journey of getting there and maybe even some of the things that were a little bit hard as you go? Because we we sit here and we talk about how good it is, but we don't want to also say it's the easiest thing in the world. Just, invite everyone and be friends with everyone and all this kinds of stuff. We know it's not always easy. So do you want to just share a little bit about what's been going on with you in regards to community?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I have been kind of exploring some new communities lately. And I think one of the things that I've just really wrestled with is enjoying community and enjoying new friends who also think differently than I do on some things. And what does it look like for me as a Christ follower and for them as a Christ follower to love Jesus deeply together and still like think differently about some of that. And so it's been really encouraging, but it's also been really challenging. And I think sometimes challenge, like when we think challenge, or maybe it's just me, when I think challenge, I'm like, ooh, hard, yuck. I don't want to do that. That's not comfortable. Because that is our kind of American culture, right? We want to do what's easy. We don't want to be challenged. We don't want to, get outside of our comfort zone. Honestly, I'm an introvert. So for me, just meeting new people is a little bit outside of my comfort zone. But it's been a really sweet season, and I've seen the Lord work in really, really sweet ways in my own heart, of what it looks like to really love and care for people, who love Jesus. And so, and just making sure that we keep the main things the main thing. And, talking through and like learning from one another on areas that we disagree on. But at the end of the day, like what matters most is loving and following Jesus and inviting others to be a part of that community. And Amen. So I think in a world where we're so often divided, as followers of Jesus, I think this is something that we can really learn from the early church of what does it look like to be united in Christ and how to live out that unity. Not that unity equals uniformity, not that we're all going to think the same or have the same opinions, or but that we can still be united and rooted in our knowledge and understanding and faith of who Jesus is, and allow the scriptures and just to continue to work in our lives and our hearts as we grow closer to Jesus.
I love that. And thanks for bringing up the introverted thing as well. Even when we talk about hindrances, like we could talk about these big things where, where kids might disagree, or they might just not like somebody, sometimes is how it feels. But you also have kids that this is genuinely hard for them because they're so introverted. They're very, very shy, or they're very, very quiet. They might even show up and they might think, I would love to make a friend, but I'm scared to even talk out loud. And it's like, let's just have our eyes and our hearts open to really, how can we as leaders help foster this community within our ministries? We give you guys different discussion guides, and we give you activities and games that are meant to help break down barriers to belonging, and that are encouraging kids to help one another feel like they're part of our communities. But what can we as leaders be doing to continue to help foster these relationships? Because, most kids aren't going to be, I would say, almost as brave as Kayla and say, even though I'm introverted, I still care about being in community. I'm just going to go for it. They're 6. They don't know that yet. So as leaders, let's take the opportunity this week and this month to continue to help kids find that sense of community and belonging within our ministries, and know that it's all because of who God is and how much He loves them. Every single one of them is there for a purpose. Hey, and also, as a reminder to all of you, we also have our Facebook community, our Hi-Fi community. We love, love, love getting to interact with you there. Post your pictures, share your stories, ask your questions. I think one of the cool things that's come in this community is that now people will post questions, and it's not necessarily one of the Hi-Fi team that answers, but it's you who are also using it that you're like, hey, we've done this, and hey, try this. And we love that. So you are invited to be a part of our online community as well. Be sure you tune in next week. We get to talk about our good friends from Scripture, Priscilla and Aquila, and how God connects us to each other. So you won't want to miss it. Tune back in next week.